This video is about my adventure into climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. For those of you who've been following along, you'll know that, I had transitioned and left my corporate job about 6 months ago. And what was really exciting about Kilimanjaro was it was at this point that I was contemplating the departure, what my next steps in my life journey might look like. But it was also an opportunity to reconnect with doing tough things. And I have written some articles about this, about some things in my personal background with sports, or also in my career background with the military previously, that usually centered around this idea of, participating in things that are physically and mentally challenging as a way to build resilience, as an opportunity to build confidence and continue to push the boundaries of, what is possible, and to just really put yourself in situation for growth. I had kind of fallen away from doing physically tough things for probably 6 or 7 years. When I was in my corporate role, I was spending a lot of time traveling, and I was in large part, kind of deprioritizing health, and not only through diet, but also in probably not taking super serious my workout routines. And so, I was still maybe lifting weights here and there, but it was kind of lazy lifting, nothing too seriously or committed, certainly nothing with, goals or intentions of, having a performance output on the back end. And so to have Mount Kilimanjaro be something I could put on a pedestal and have an aim that I could kind of not only plan towards and to look forward to on like kind of this tail end of my journey out of corporate America, it was also an opportunity to kind of recenter along physical goals and fitness, to get back in the gym with intentionality, and to really push myself to partake in cardio training again, and put weight on my back to get used to carrying large bags, and try to do stuff to get prepared for the altitude. So the night before the trip, I've been doing all this training and stuff for it. There were some actual trip delays. The flight was unexpectedly canceled. Me and my buddy ended up staying up pretty late trying to figure out how to get on to, another flight. It was a whole disaster. But anyways, me and him ended up partaking in probably one too many beers. And so before we departed for our 32-hour flight to Tanzania, we had to go ahead and get some IVs to kind of help hydrate a little bit, to set the tone, which is probably not a best practice for someone if you're actually interested in climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. It's not certainly something that I would recommend you do. I'd actually recommend you probably tone back from the drinking for at least about a month out before you head off. Getting out to Tanzania was awesome. We worked with a tour group called Popote Africa. Also link to their website and contact information below. From start to end, was absolutely blown away with their level of communication before the trip, with their timeliness and punctuality from the points we got on the ground. And we had 3 people traveling collectively, and 2 of us on different itineraries, and they were super accommodating. I had absolutely not a single issue with them, and they managed everything from our, I think it was 3 or 4 days safari experience before we actually started climbing, all the way through our 7-day climb at Mount Kilimanjaro and our departure from Tanzania. And the accommodations they set us up with were, first class, 4 or 5-star resorts. The food at these accommodations were incredible. The lunches and setup of the safari trucks themselves were awesome. They had, water, wine, beer. The lunches were packed, but really good. And the guides that we had, Saeed, phenomenal, super funny guy. We had a great time with him. And then we had Johnson and Innocent, who are the 2 leaders of the expedition that we had up the mountain. And that was a 7-day experience. There was, I think, 18 or 20 folks supporting all 3 of us, right? So, they were carrying tents, cots, portable toilets. You had the chef who was preparing the mountains down the meals. They were carrying, I think, around 40 to 50 pounds of our weight and baggage, and we were carrying, like I said, probably around 10, 12 pounds. And to see the level of support that they had put in place just for 3 climbers, I thought was just incredible. I mean, Johnson and his team, they were all over medical checks on keeping us aware of, what was coming the next day, what to expect timing wise, making sure that we were all in good, physical condition and had snacks and things to continue to be prepared for Summit Day. And I thought Summit Day was pretty challenging. We started around midnight. We didn't get to the top till it was around sunrise, probably 6:30, 7 a.m. You're just moving painstakingly slow. Each step up that high up in the mountain is like a gasp for air. At 19,000 feet, breathing at that levels isn't super easy. Something that I think did set me apart, aside from just, taking training seriously that I said I did beforehand, which honestly wasn't that intense. Like, I think there's people who partake in probably tougher training regimens than I did. I would say a big thing I think that helped me up there was breath work. I've been doing breath work for a couple years, and I know that my oxidative capacity has increased quite a bit. And I could tell you that the altitude effect in terms of being able to perform and move, like, I didn't feel it as bad as I think some of the other folks that I was with, and also just folks in general that, you're encountering along the ways experienced. My oxygen levels were pretty high throughout the entirety of the trip. And I think from an energy and stamina standpoint, I felt pretty strong and good. And I attribute a lot of that to the benefits that you get from a breathwork routine.